You wake up 3 ways at once: choking on dirt, falling out of the sky, drowning in your own breath. Pick a father, pick a problem: earth, sky, sea, grave, bolt, wave. Same family, different flavor of doom. This isn't a baby shower, it's a hazard briefing. Rule number 1, don't make demigods. Rule number 2, oops. Some lives are warnings, some are punchlines. Today, you're all 3. Breathe in, borrow a spine. Everything you learn in one life stains the next. Like grave dirt on a white shirt. Like ozone in a scar, like salt in a wound. You wake up underground. Literally, there's a coffin lid above your face and nothing but panic between your lungs and the stale air. You punch through the wood like it's wet paper, clawing your way through cold, damp earth. The soil is thick, suffocating, full of tiny roots that feel like fingers pulling you back down. Your lungs burn, your nails tear, your heart is a jackhammer. You hear the muffled sound of thunder above, like distant applause for your premature resurrection. When you finally break the surface, you gasp like a newborn choking on his first breath. It's night, cemetery, of course. Headstones lean like drunks. Fog rolls in like it has something to hide. Thunder rumbles. Rain begins to drizzle like the universe is spitting on your resurrection. Welcome to Tuesday. The moon is a jaundiced smear above you. Bats circle in the air like nature's drones. A lone owl hoots. It sounds judgmental. Your fingers shake. You wipe dirt from your eyes. Your first sight is a crooked angel statue watching you with chipped stone eyes. Its smile looks like it knows something terrible, and it probably does. A shadow moves behind a tomb. A soft whisper, your name, curls in the fog like cigarette smoke. Welcome to your origin story. You're a son of Hades, Daddy Dearest, god of the underworld, king of ghost emo vibes and lost souls, master of shadows, father of none, or so the gods like to pretend. He wasn't supposed to break the pact, but Hades always had a thing for rules, and breaking them when they weren't looking. He met your mom on a foggy winter night. She lit a candle in a temple basement. He appeared in a cloud of brimstone, said something poetic about mortality. 9 months later, you. Her reward? Raising a haunted kid with a talent for necromancy and ruining group photos. You weren't just a surprise. You were a cosmic accident dressed in a baby blanket. You cried the first time the lights dimmed in your nursery. You screamed the first time a ghost tried to comfort you. Your first word, don't. Kindergarten. You summon a skeletal raccoon during recess. First grade. You bring a talking skull for show and tell. The principal cries. Third grade. You try to smile more. That makes it worse. Fifth grade. Silence becomes your love language. Your mom signs you up for t-ball. The coach quits. Choir. The sheet music bursts into flame. Scouts. 5/10 vanish and a kid swears he saw a ghost dog chewing his sock. By 6th grade, you're known as that kid, the one who talks to the janitor like he's got secrets. Spoiler, he does. And yet, through all this, your mom keeps going. She tapes sigils on your lunchbox, hugs you with iron bracelets on her wrists, smiles like it's a shield. She makes pancakes shaped like skulls and calls them goth cakes. You never say thank you, but you never miss a bite. You learn to read Latin before you learn cursive. You start collecting old coins because they whisper. One day, your mom finds you talking to your reflection. You both freeze. She backs out of the room slowly, like she's seen it before. Cut to you, alone again. Your powers, death, shadows, depression in hoodie form. You walk into a room and it gets colder. Lights flicker. People stop talking. Conversations die like they've seen your browser history. When you're sad, the temperature drops 10 degrees and plants wither like they've given up on life. When you're mad, the earth cracks. Zombies claw their way up like interns desperate for attention. Once, during math class, you blinked and a substitute teacher aged 20 years on the spot. He retired and moved to Arizona to paint sunsets. Another time, your reflection winked at you. It hasn't stopped since. You talk back now. Sometimes it answers. Sometimes it laughs. Your school psychologist files 3 separate reports. One gets shredded. One bursts into flames. The third ends up etched into your locker door in scratchy cursive. Eventually, they stop calling home and just give you peppermint tea and a weighted blanket. At night, you dream of bones rattling in rhythm and cities made of skulls. You wake up to find handprints on your ceiling. You don't ask questions anymore. Camp Half-Blood. Summer home for weaponized trauma. You show up late, covered in soot. You walked there through a dimension you didn't know existed. You arrived holding a severed Gorgon braid and a demon's jawbone. You're not on the list, because Hades wasn't supposed to have kids. Again, oops. The other campers stare. You stare back. The air gets colder. Someone's juice box explodes. A squirrel dies. A satyr weeps. You get your own cabin. Cold marble. Black obsidian. Gothic architecture meets emotional detachment. It smells like regret and funeral lilies. One camper swears the walls whisper. Another hears their dead aunt calling them. The others avoid eye contact. Whisper, "Is he cursed? Do you think his pillow bleeds?" You train hard. While others summon lightning or flirt with naiads, you raise an army of skeletons who try to unionize. One demands PTO, another wants dental, a third wants to start a ska band. You can shadow travel, teleportation with nausea and nosebleeds as side effects. You talk to ghosts. Most are either cryptic, confused, or your uncle who won't stop quoting tax codes from 1933. Your sword is made of Stygian iron. It eats souls. You accidentally melt a vending machine trying to get Doritos. Sometimes you just walk the boundary of camp, alone, feet sinking into earth that recognizes you, whispering trees, moonlight bending away from your silhouette. And even then, especially then, there's the wait. You once asked Chiron if monsters can be afraid. He looked at you, just looked, and said, "They're terrified of you." You fall in love. Bad idea. You try to be normal. You laugh at their jokes. You bring flowers. They wilt. You suggest a movie. They pick a romantic comedy. You try not to look like a haunted shadow in the glow of the screen. They ask what your powers are. You lie. You finally get a date. Burgers. Fries. You're almost hopeful. Then a fury shows up mid-fry, screeching your full name in ancient Greek. You decapitate it. Blood and ketchup fly. Your crush screams, runs, blocks you on every app, including Venmo. Back to square one. You save people. A lot. You close death doors. Drag friends out of Tartarus. You fight monsters made of nightmares and gods with egos taller than Olympus. You once made a god flinch. It felt good, then awful. But you're never the hero in their stories. Just the weapon they point when things get desperate. You're always the last call. The forgotten plan Z. They forget your name, but remember the fear. You meet your dad eventually. Cold eyes, voice like a landslide. He says he's proud, then disappears into shadows. No hug, no warmth, just that pride, thick as marble, empty as his throne room. Your powers grow, so does the weight. Every soul you touch stays with you. Every death, every whisper, every scream no one else can hear. You don't just command the dead, you carry them. You feel their memories, their regrets, their sorrow. Sometimes it's hard to know which emotions are yours. You try to sleep, shadows curl at your feet. Ghosts whisper lullabies. You wake up tired, always tired, but you keep going. Because someone has to. And then there's her, Eurydice. No, not that Eurydice. This one died in 1923, a flapper with unfinished business, a wicked laugh, and a taste for jazz and chaos. You meet her in the underworld during one of your long, sleepless ghost walks. She doesn't scream, doesn't beg, doesn't vanish. She offers you a cigarette. You don't smoke, you take it anyway. Now she lingers. She hums old songs off key, tells stories that sound like dreams and feel like scars. I once danced until the floorboards cracked, she says, as if that explains anything. She stays through battles, through silences, through the 1,000-yard stares. You ask her why she hasn't moved on. She shrugs. Maybe it's you. You laugh, then you cry. She pretends not to notice. Sometimes she sits close when the nightmares get bad. Sometimes she threatens other ghosts who try to get in your head. Sometimes she just talks. To keep you tethered. She believes in you. That is terrifying. You sit alone, then you're not. A ghost drifts by, nods, sits, another joins, and another. You don't speak. You don't have to. The fire crackles like a heartbeat in the dark. The night is quiet, but it's not empty. There's warmth here. Strange, haunted warmth. Eurydice sits beside you, knees drawn up, humming something ancient and bittersweet. You stare into the flames. They don't recoil. It sucks to be a son of Hades. It's lonely, heavy, unfair, but it's yours. And in the end, you're still here, and even death needs someone to love him back. You think that warmth is closure. It's a receipt. The earth lets go. The sky wants a turn. You spent a lifetime dragging things out of graves. Now gravity returns the favor. New body, same debt, different collector. From shadow walker to falling object. Promotion, Olympus style. Wind howls, sky splits, lightning cracks, you're screaming, or maybe that's just the air leaving your lungs. You're falling, not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally, from the heavens, because your dad just yeeted you off Mount Olympus. Welcome to divine fatherhood, courtesy of Zeus, king of the gods, lord of lightning, patron saint of bad decisions. Oh, and congratulations, you're his son, which means your life is about to be a cosmic mess of prophecy, trauma, and testosterone. You are born not in a hospital. Hospitals are for mortals. You explode into the world somewhere remote, inconvenient, and aesthetically tragic. Maybe a windswept mountaintop, maybe a cursed grove guarded by nymphs with emotional baggage, or maybe in the arms of a terrified priestess hiding in a clay hut while Zeus shapeshifts into mist and vanishes, humming something smug. There are no epidurals, no nurses, no squeaky bassinets, just moaning winds, celestial omens, and your mortal mother praying you don't glow or sprout wings. Because here's the catch, you're not a secret, you're a liability, a living, breathing receipt of Zeus's latest affair, and Hera is very into audits. So the second your lungs take in air, your life goes on the run. You don't get lullabies, you get hideouts. You don't get a baby mobile, you get a protective goat. And if you cry too loud, someone turns into a bird, or gets struck by lightning. Your birth isn't a celebration, it's a crisis management scenario. Half the Olympian family tree is already placing bets on whether you'll die young, ascend to legend, or just turn into a flower. And you're just a baby, cursed with power, burdened with prophecy, and wrapped in a blanket that smells like divine regret. Your childhood is a highlight reel of near-death experiences and family feuds. You learn to walk on marble floors slick with ichor, divine blood, usually someone else's. You learn to talk over the sound of screaming harpies and passive-aggressive curses from distant cousins. Your lullabies are war chants. Your babysitter is a cyclops with one eye and zero patience. And your family? Oh gods, your family. Your half-siblings are a pantheon of walking complexes. There's Hercules, who trains by body-slamming lions before breakfast. Ares, who tried to put you in a headlock at your naming ceremony. Apollo, who writes passive-aggressive poems about you in iambic pentameter. And Athena, who stares at you like you're an equation she's already solved and found lacking. You don't have play dates. You have combat drills. Capture the flag involves actual territory disputes and the occasional mortal casualty. Your first toy was probably cursed. Your second one definitely was. And every birthday party ends with a thunderstorm, a missing cake, and someone turning into an owl. It's not that they don't love you. It's that love in your family is just another competition, a prize to be earned, a throne to be fought over. No hugs, just headbutts. No bedtime kisses, just warnings about prophecy. And over it all, the ever-present tension. Will you be the favored one, or just another half-forgotten bastard in Zeus's divine discard pile? You remember once, just once, thinking maybe he did care. You were 7, maybe 8. You had a fever that wouldn't break, and your mother prayed until her voice gave out. And then, in the middle of the night, a storm rolled in without warning. The wind knocked the roof loose. The fire roared blue, and a single thunderbolt struck the tree outside your window, splitting it down the middle, but leaving the house untouched. Your mother whispered, "He's watching," and for a moment, wrapped in blankets and delusion, you believed it. Swords, shields, lightning bolt dodging. That's your childhood curriculum. No fractions, no recess. Just stab or be stabbed. 5 days a week. Divine holidays optional. You're being trained by someone who shouldn't legally be allowed near children. A grizzled centaur with PTSD and wine breath. Or maybe a disgraced war hero cursed into bird form. Or a talking tree stump with the soul of a Spartan general and very strong opinions on posture. Every day starts with a death threat and ends with an existential question. You're 13 and already have a bad knee from wrestling a manticore that got too handsy. Training isn't just physical, it's psychological warfare. You learn to identify poisons by taste. You're taught how to kill a hydra, a titan, and, most importantly, your own doubts. You don't get grades, you get scars. You don't graduate, you survive. Because you're not being raised, you're being readied for the quest, for the death, for the point of all this. It's your 16th birthday. No cake, no party. Just a scroll tied to a raven's leg and a prophetic dream that leaves you sweating in ancient Greek. Because 16 is when your childhood officially expires. Now it's time for your mandatory hero's quest, TM, the ancient rite of passage where you either save the world or become a cautionary tale. You're handed a weapon you don't understand, a magical item that sounds useful but isn't, and a sidekick who either owes you a life debt or wants to kill you slowly over time. The prophecy? Classic gibberish. A son of the sky shall rise and fall, unmake the flame, and wake the stone. Cool. That narrows it down to everyone. You fight monsters whose names are longer than your lifespan. Cross bridges made of bones. Negotiate with oracles who charge in riddles and trauma. And every night you dream of Olympus, of dad, watching, judging, never helping. At some point in some ruined temple, somewhere halfway between destiny and dead, you stop running. Your wounds are still fresh, your blade is chipped, your sidekick is either dead, missing, or turned into something winged and sarcastic. You stare into some cracked ceremonial basin. You barely recognize the face staring back. And you ask, what even is glory? You realize you weren't chosen because you were strong. You were chosen because you were expendable. You weren't born for greatness. You were born for narrative tension. You're not a son. You're a side plot, a backup character in your father's celestial soap opera. And somehow, you stand up anyway, because maybe that's what makes you dangerous. You don't want to be a god, you just want to be free. You live. Somehow, you survive your prophecy, your monsters, yourself. You even survive the underworld. And that's saying something. Now you're a demigod with a bad back and a fan club. The songs get your story wrong. Statues crop up that don't look like you. Some bard turns your life into a tragic ballad that slaps, but still gets the details wrong. And Zeus, he sends a gift, a laurel, a bolt-shaped paperweight, no note. You're paraded through cities like a celebrity, but no one sees you. Not really, because no one tells you what happens after you survive, after the credits roll and the applause dies down, after the legend becomes heavier than the sword ever was. You remember the first and only time he looked at you like a son. It wasn't when you were born, or when you nearly died, or even when you won. It was when you said no. No to Olympus, no to his throne, no to becoming him. You stood your ground, cracked and mortal, and gave him the one thing he never expected: defiance without rage, strength without thunder. And for a second, he looked at you like something more than a burden, like maybe for once he saw you. Then it passed. But you carry that look like a scar, not because it healed you, but because it proved you existed. Time passes. You don't age. Not really. You just fade. The gods get bored. They make new suns, new prophecies, new content. You live in the woods, or a cave, or some seaside place where no one pronounces your name right. Young demigods find you, ask you how to win. You tell them not to. You say, survive. That's enough. They never understand. Not yet. One day, the sky cracks again. Same thunder, same sharp smell of ozone and judgment. Same electric itch in the marrow of your bones that you haven't felt in years. Not like this. Not this loud. Not this familiar. You don't flinch. You don't pray. You don't even look up. You just stop what you're doing. Stacking firewood, stirring soup, sharpening the same old blade for no real reason anymore. And you listen, because you know exactly what this is. It's not for you, not anymore. Another child is being born, another prophecy waking up in a cradle of chaos, another name about to be dragged across the sky like yours once was. You sip your tea, you let it come, and you do nothing, because this time, the storm isn't yours. For the first time in your life, you are not the chosen, not the cursed, not the son. You are just free. To be born a son of Zeus sounds like a blessing, until you live it, until you realize that being powerful doesn't mean being loved, that being chosen doesn't mean being seen, that sometimes the greatest rebellion is surviving. You didn't ask for this, but you lived it, and that's the part they'll never put in the myths, because it isn't glorious, it's just real. And as the sky splits once more, and another tree falls in the distance, you don't mistake it for love this time. You just sip your tea and let it burn the whole way down. Freedom is the breath between thunder and wave. You put the bolt down, the tide picks you up, steam from the cup lifts, turns to mist, turns to weather. The sky exhale becomes the ocean's inhale. New body, same tab. This time it's wet, not a prophecy, just a riptide with your name on it. Thunder cracks. Salt burns your nostrils. The air is a chaotic soup of static, sea spray, and screaming gulls. You aren't swaddled in a cozy blanket. You're wrapped in kelp and panic. Somewhere, not far from your head, a trident splits a sea monster in half, like it's a piñata stuffed with chum. Lightning forks across the sky, illuminating your mother mid-push, mid-scream, mid-regret. Welcome to your birth. You're screaming. Not because you're a baby, but because you're already halfway drowning and there's a giant crab pinching the umbilical cord. Poseidon doesn't do hospitals, he does tempests. And this one has your name on it. You are born between tides, in a storm, in secret, because your dad. He's one of the big three, and apparently Greek gods aren't great at family planning. You grow up wet, constantly, damp socks, soggy cereal, and a strange ability to mold bread just by touching it. Every day smells like brine and abandonment. Salt stains your clothes and your psyche. Your mom, mortal, tired, underpaid, spends half her life with a mop in one hand and a Greek to English dictionary in the other. She tries to keep the ocean out of your lunchbox and divine interference off the school roster. She packs peanut butter sandwiches in waterproof bags and says prayers in languages she doesn't understand. But it doesn't work. The plumbing never behaves. The goldfish in your classroom die mysteriously. Your first word might have been surf. At 7, you flood the bathroom by sneezing. It starts with a dribble and ends with a biblical deluge. Your rubber duck floats out into the hallway. Your mom cries. The plumber refuses to come back. At 10, you make a whirlpool in a kiddie pool just by doing cannonballs and humming sea shanties. It swallows 3 action figures and your neighbor's chihuahua. At 12, a talking hippocampus shows up at your science fair dressed in a tie and glasses and eats the PTA president's Subaru. The school writes it off as a gas leak hallucination. You're banned from all future fairs. You think you're cursed. Everyone else agrees. And then, just as you're getting used to the constant wet socks and weird stares, puberty hits like a tsunami. Literally, your voice cracks, your bones ache, and the tides shift with your mood. You get mad and the neighbor's koi pond explodes. Scales and water lilies everywhere. Your feet grow 2 sizes overnight, and suddenly every body of water within a 10-mile radius knows your name. Fish start following you to school like scaly paparazzi. Storm clouds form when you cry, which becomes a problem during gym class dodgeball. You try to tell a therapist. You mention dreams of drowning and waking up with barnacles on your sheets. They nod, scribble something, and increase your dosage. Again. Then one day, a satyr with goat legs and bad breath grabs your arm and screams, "Demigod alert!" Now you're on a bus to Camp Half-Blood, somewhere between This Is a Dream and How Do I Always End Up the Wet One? You're soaked, again, even though it's not raining. The kid next to you keeps side-eyeing the puddle forming under your seat. You clutch a backpack that smells like mildew and desperation. The satyr beside you is snoring through one nostril and clutching a can of Monster like it's a holy relic. Outside the window, trees blur past, but every once in a while you swear you see something, a nymph, a minotaur, a raccoon with a trident. You're too tired to tell. You close your eyes for a second and dream of dry towels. You wake up to the bus hitting a bump and a water bottle exploding in your lap. Perfect. Everyone stares when you arrive. Not because you're new, because you're dangerous. Like a grenade wrapped in soggy jeans. Sons of Poseidon are rare. Forbidden, actually. A divine level oops. The gods made a pact. No more demigod kids from the big 3. Too much power, too much prophecy, too many lawsuits. But Poseidon? He couldn't help himself. One drunken storm and a mortal beach fling later, here you are. Olympus's biggest HR violation. They give you your own cabin. It's nice. If your idea of nice is maritime isolation with a side of mildew, built from driftwood and barnacle-ridden beams, it looks like a shipwreck decided to retire on land. The door creaks like a haunted schooner schooner. The furniture, nautical themed and waterlogged. There's a bunk bed even though you're the only occupant, as if they're anticipating your future schizophrenia. A fountain bubbles in the corner, which sounds relaxing until it starts whispering in ancient Greek at 3 a.m. Lonely doesn't even cover it. You eat meals alone, train alone, sleep surrounded by seashells and existential dread. The other campers treat you like a ticking water bomb, like you might cry and flood the archery range, or sneeze and accidentally summon a kraken into the dining pavilion. You try to make friends, you smile, you crack jokes, you even pretend you don't hear the ocean calling your name during Capture the Flag. But most back away slowly, eyes darting to exits and emergency rafts. You're not one of them. You're a prophecy, a walking spoiler alert for the end of the world. Campfire songs get quieter when you show up. People stop sharing their marshmallows. Even the magical Pegasus won't make eye contact. You didn't ask for it, but here it is. You will decide the fate of Olympus. No pressure, just the balance of the universe teetering on the shoulders of a hormonal waterbender with a history of flooding middle schools. You, the kid who still wets the bed during thunderstorms. Fantastic. It's not written on a scroll or whispered by oracles in misty caves. No, you find out via prophecy dream, a psychedelic fever dream courtesy of Apollo with flaming riddles and an eagle that may or may not be your great aunt. You wake up sweating salt water, clutching a conch shell, and somehow knowing exactly what it means. You're the tipping point between divine salvation and total celestial meltdown. Monsters love you. They can smell your divine daddy issues from miles away. You fight cyclopes, harpies, titans on weekdays, sometimes in jeans, sometimes in pajamas. Your sword has its own frequent flyer miles. Let's talk about the ocean thing. Yeah, you can control water, but it's not like ordering DoorDash. It's moody, violent, it holds grudges. You try to summon a wave, you get a hurricane. You try to ride a dolphin, it bites you. You try to dry your hair with a gust of sea breeze and accidentally summon a nor'easter. Being the child of prophecy doesn't come with a guidebook, just dreams, pressure, and a growing suspicion the gods aren't betting on you. They're betting against each other, and you're just the wet chess piece stuck in the middle. And still, you try to be a teenager. You never get to be normal. School? Forget it. Every semester ends with a fire drill, a flood, or a faculty member turning into a hydra. Friends? Not unless they're mythologically endangered or carry a celestial bronze weapon in their backpack. Dates? Well, if your idea of romance is almost dying in a lava cave while holding hands, then sure. Nothing says teenage love like dodging molten rocks and narrowly escaping a three-headed hellhound. Also, earthquakes. You get upset, tectonic plates shift. You develop anxiety about your own emotions. Crying could trigger tsunamis. Laughing might sink islands. You begin to fear happiness almost as much as you fear math tests. You try to write a poem once. It summons a waterspout that destroys the soccer field. You meet your dad once. He's 30 feet tall, glowing, and casually riding a shark like it's a Vespa. He says, "I'm proud of you, son," then vanishes in a spray of seawater and emotional detachment. Classic Poseidon. Eventually, you do save Olympus. Kinda. You wrestle a titan off a skyscraper. You summon a tidal wave in Times Square. You yell at Zeus twice. At least you delay Olympus's destruction and rack up some serious trauma points. They throw you a feast. There's ambrosia, awkward toasts, and a lyre solo that makes you question the gods' taste in music. They give you a laurel wreath, which immediately wilts in your wet hair. They immortalize you in song, though they get your name wrong, and then they move on. Just another chapter in an epic they've been rewriting for millennia. You go back to school, try to blend in. You tell people you were on an extended youth sailing retreat, but the sea doesn't let go. You hear it in pipes, in sinks, in the rain. It whispers, calls, pulls. You flinch at the sound of crashing waves. You start avoiding beaches, aquariums, even water fountains. But it doesn't matter. You are marked, you are ocean-born, and the tide always comes back. You try to live a normal life, get a job, pay taxes, date someone who doesn't think harpies are a metaphor, but normal doesn't stick. Your resume is a patchwork of temp gigs, heroic quests, and one summer spent working security at an aquarium before you were politely asked to leave for telepathic misconduct with marine mammals. How do you explain the trident in your closet, or the sea nymph who delivers your Amazon packages and keeps winking, or the fact that every time you get emotional, your dishwasher explodes? Your body aches like it remembers every battle. Your knees crack like ancient scrolls. You flinch when you hear thunder, not because you're afraid, but because you're bracing for a god to drop in unannounced. Your dreams still smell like salt and war, and sometimes you wake up mid-fight, swinging a pillow like it's celestial bronze. Your relationships? Strained. Intimacy is hard when your very presence can cause flash floods. You try therapy again. This time, the therapist is a dryad. She understands more than most, but you still leave every session damp. And there's always another prophecy, another monster, another kid who's just like you, confused, cursed, chosen. You start mentoring them, teaching them to swim before they drown in destiny. You smile, you pretend it's fine, you carry on, because being a hero isn't something you outgrow. It's something that clings, like salt, like scars. One day, you stand on a cliff, ocean below, sky above, salt on your lips, wind in your hair, and years of bruises in your bones. You wonder if you ever had a choice, or if your whole life was just a divine punchline, the universe's wettest inside joke. You think about your mom, her mop, her prayers, about the kids you've trained, the monsters you've slain, the waves you've ridden, and the ones that nearly swallowed you whole. You look out at the horizon. It doesn't end. It never does. The waves call you home, not with words, but with rhythm. A lullaby of riptides and memories, a promise and a threat, and you dive. Not because you're giving up, but because you've always belonged to the sea. Because in the water, you are free, you are weightless, you are whole. Because when you're the son of Poseidon, the sea is both your cradle and your coffin, and maybe, just maybe, your kingdom. Big 3, same lesson. Being chosen isn't being loved. You weren't born for glory. You were born for continuity. Close the loop, keep the scar. If the next storm isn't yours, let it pass.